If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're listening to Sweep the League.
Hey, this is George Iceman Gervin, and you're listening to Sweep the League Radio.
And that is the class of 2025, the WWE class of 2025. We may get one more announcement, I believe, but so far that's who we have. Congratulations to the class of 2025 WWE Hall of Fame, the Natural Disasters, the newest inductees into the WWE Hall of Fame. Rudy Campos Jr. going to be joined by Coach Gio here in just a little bit. Let me text the coach to make sure, because we got to get his opinion on a lot of this stuff. But anyway, shout out to the WWE Class of Hall of Fame, Michelle McCool, Lex Luger, Triple H going in, well, as himself there, and the Natural Disasters. Congratulations. Let's bring on the coach, because it's been like forever. Coach, you're back, man. What's up, dude?
Doing pretty good, and I got a bit sick after my Vegas trip.
So what happened?
I think I just caught a really bad flu. So I was sick for about a week and some change. But good to be back. It was a good trip in Vegas. You know, whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, Rudy.
I was just going to ask you, what did you do in Vegas? Or can you speak on what you did in Vegas?
Yeah, so first day I did the strip, and could you believe, Rudy, I logged over 35,000 steps.
35,000. Wow.
Steps on the strip. My legs were about to break. And then after that, we actually spent most of our time at Red Rock and doing some hiking in the beautiful mountains over there in Vegas. And that's pretty much it. I'm not, I gamble, but I wasn't really into the whole casino vibe. So
yeah,
skip that out. But good place. If you have it's not for a week, so I went for about 4 days, so that's about right for
they say you can't spend more than 2 days in Vegas, 2 or 3 days in Vegas.
Well, if you're gambling, Rudy, I skipped out on that. But I don't know. Vegas is I mean, I know you've been there before. It's a very interesting city.
To say the least.
To say the least. I just have some good Mexican food, actually.
That is bull. That is horrible. If you had good Mexican food in Vegas,
Rudy, I'm telling you, when you went in there, these ladies were making tortillas by hand. It was legit. This wasn't no Mission Tortillas. Okay, this was old ladies and getting those tortillas. Really good food.
I'm going to have to get the name of the place from you, because I'm supposed to go to Vegas here soon. So I need to get the name of the place from you so I can try this.
You going to Vegas again, Rudy?
Pretty soon. I can't announce when. I don't want to get mobbed by people that are starting to hate me more and more on this podcast since you've been gone. So, apparently I've been saying dumb stuff on here, which it's all true. I mean, I don't lie about anything. So
it's not
missed out on a lot. You know, we can spend a whole show this week just catching up on what you missed out on. Anywhere from Twitter to people deleting stuff, just left and right. You know how it is, man. It's a Twitter world. We got everybody in here. Leha, MCS General Contracting, proud sponsors of Sweep the League. Chris Leha's in here. What's good, everyone? You need the patio done. You need the businesses need a parking lot, pool, whatever you need, man. Contact Chris Leha and the boys over at MCS General Contracting, proud sponsors of Sweep the League. We got Tim Gonzalez, your Blue Devils. Gio, we're gonna have to get into Blue Devils because it's kind of crazy what I'm talking about when it comes to them. Blue Devils for the men's and women's. Joel Clone, what is up, Joel? Thank you for joining us in on here. Going to catch up on everybody tonight. Lex is going to have me crying. The Lex Luger one has me crying a whole lot every time I have to play that. That sucks. Rudy get the tables. Joel Cologne says the Shockmaster. If you remember the Shockmaster, that was amazing back in the day.
The Shockmaster, didn't he fall on the floor?
Well, remember, Ottman, the guy that was talking at the end of our WWE tribute thing, he was the Shockmaster. He was the guy that fell to the floor.
Well, I believe, was it Sid or Razor? I think it was Sid. He's like, I told you he was going to fall.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was Sid.
Yeah, I think it was Sid at the end there.
Let's do it. Jacob Eric, Grading the Market. That show will be coming back as well. Gio is back, man. It's going to storm. Like I said, it's going to storm. You know, it's going to storm this week. So definitely with Gio back. Leha versus Elias at WrestleMania in a steel cage match. Everyone got sick. USOA episode coming soon. Rudy, Leha Time 6th edition. We can't wait for the USOA edition of the podcast coming out. That's going to be good. Hey, I got to remind everybody, Gio, you're here now, so you're going to love this. Last week, we announced on the show live. I was in negotiations, man. And I'm letting everybody know Joel Cologne's here, so he's going to love this too. He was always begging for it. Can I let you know, Gio, that I got an official word, and I got it in writing too. Painting Corners podcast is coming back full-time in 2026, May of 2026, but we're getting Painting Corners short podcast episodes starting very soon with Austin Hartsfield coming back and the crew. So we finally got our baseball podcast back on Sweep the League Network.
Listen, I've talked to this Rudy behind closed doors for several years.
Mm-hmm.
I said, we got to figure out how to get Austin back on the pod, or just back, period. Congratulations. He knows his baseball. I'm sure we'll be talking to him about my lovely Seattle Mariners and other baseball. But baseball season is here, Rudy.
It is.
It's a long season, so we don't always get to talk about baseball, but it's here, and I hate the Dodgers, and I will continue to hate the Dodgers this year. Though I don't hate them as much as the Houston Astros.
Oh God, you're really coming on strong now.
But I will make some trips to some Mariners games. I'm hoping to make it to Pittsburgh and Kansas City for those two lovely stadiums. So yeah, no, baseball season's here. But shout out to Austin and the crew there, much deserved, and they're going to go somewhere. Trust me on that.
Yeah, well, they're coming back full time May of 2026 is what he told me for sure, full time. So you'll probably get 4 episodes a week, maybe 3 episodes a week. But from time to time, from here until then, we're getting a couple episodes here and there. Painting Corners podcast, the absolute best baseball podcast around. And I'm not even saying that to hype it up. I don't have to hype it up at all. That is guaranteed the best baseball podcast around. Austin covers. He's a Red Sox fan. He covered the Padres. He covered the Sod Poodles in Amarillo. He's even had friends with the Mariners, I believe, right? He knew some of the Mariner players, if I'm not mistaken. So, he can get a whole lot of people to come on the show. So, I hope my boss has me off for early opening day. Let's go Red Sox. Joel Cologne's going to love it. Rudy Target players are in the transfer portal. And speaking of transfer portal, here, got a really quick clip from Jay Billis on all this here.
There's a great deal of discussion about the makeup of this year's Sweet 16, that all the 16 teams in the Sweet 16 come from 4 conferences, 7 from the Southeastern Conference, 4 each from the Big 10 and the Big 12, and then 1 being Duke from the ACC. And there's discussion that, this is a result of NIL and the transfer portal. One data point does not make a trend. This is just 1 year. Last year, we had a ton of upheaval and chaos and upsets. This year, not as many. But remember, Drake won a first-round game. St. Mary's, Gonzaga won a first-round game. New Mexico, Colorado State. And Colorado State was a bucket away from reaching the Sweet 16. It took a last-second shot by Maryland to keep them out of the Sweet 16. McNeese won a first-round game. UC San Diego, a trendy upset pick against Michigan, lost by a bucket in their game. And people also tend to forget or not emphasize that 2 years ago, Houston was in the American Athletic Conference. BYU was in the West Coast Conference. Arizona was in the Pac-12. It's been 24 years since Ole Miss was in a Sweet 16. It's been 14 years since BYU was in a Sweet 16. One data point does not make a trend. This is not the ruination of college basketball. It's not the ruination of the tournament. That stuff doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And by the way, ratings are up for the regular season and in the NCAA tournament. It's just 1 year, and we've seen years like this before. Usually in the Sweet 16, it's 13 major conference teams, a couple of mid-majors, and Gonzaga. And the only reason Gonzaga's not in the Sweet 16 is they were misseeded as an 8 seed and had to play the 1 in one of the best games of the tournament against Houston. Those things are factors too. So I'm not sure it's time for panic yet, but the facile interpretation that this is all NIL in the portal, I don't buy it.
Yeah, so Jake's bringing up a couple of points that I wanted to get to because we talk about NIL here on Sweep the League. How it's beneficial. You know, it's great that players are getting paid, but you're starting to see a lot of stuff going on that we expected to see. Before we go, Joel says, not going to lie, the bar for me is set pretty high, friggin' high with the Section 10 podcast. Those dudes are legends of Red Sox Nation. Again, you know, I haven't heard of Section 10 podcast. I'll take a listen to them all the time, you know, whenever I can. But yeah, Austin and Painting Corners, they had a very short run, but when they were on, I mean, Jesus, they did a lot.
For that small time frame. I'm telling you, they were. Think of wrestling. Think of like a hot heel. I mean, they were really hot, and you know the COVID pandemic, changed a lot of things when it comes to that. But glad to see they're back. For a second, I thought he said the Section A Section 8. I was like, wait a minute, Section 8. Is this a housing podcast? But no, we'll have to check them out for sure.
Yeah, I'll check out the Section 10 podcast too. But yeah, Penny Corners will be coming back. So Jay's talking about this, man. Now, I get it. This year you don't have a lot of the upsets going into the Sweet 16. Duke. I began the whole thing. I said, I had Duke winning it 1 week, and then when I turned in my bracket, I had Auburn winning it overall. But I did have Auburn Duke as my final 2 teams fighting for the championship. But here's the thing, man. NIL, as we've seen already, we've already seen some Michigan players, and Michigan is still in the tournament. They've already declared and themselves as part of the transfer portal, and they're still playing games. And it goes back to what Jay's saying, and a lot of other people are saying, Gio. McNeese State, UC San Diego, a lot of these schools, and UTSA here in San Antonio feels it too on the football side. These kids come, they get coached up by the coaches, and that's what I've always said is I feel bad for the coaches because you coach them up, you get them to a point, and they transfer out for more money. This is the part where I don't like the NIL. So do you think it's fair that these kids are not treated like a business person, basically? I mean, one person mentioned sign a 2-year contract. You have to stay there for 2 years. Or what other ideas could you have? Because I got a couple of mine, but is NIL going to really ruin the Cinderella stories in March Madness?
No, because, really, just a few years ago, and I was still here, didn't Purdue go down as the number 1 seed? I believe still during that time event. Now it's obviously progressed, and there needs to be more rules. For someone to transfer during a freaking college tournament, Rudy, seems a bit crazy to me. There got to be some rules in place. I like the contract idea of potentially 2 years or just 1 year. And look, we've had some of the great coaches, Rudy, leave college basketball. They didn't say it was because of NIL, but it is because of NIL. Nick Saban, Rudy,
he's gone.
Which thank God he left. But Nick Saban, he's gone. We've seen other college coaches saying, this is really changing the game. Now we are having more leveled field because look at Indiana, Rudy. Look, they put money into the transfer portal, and you saw what they did on the football program this year, right? We saw what BYU did. We saw what Iowa State did. So there's pros and cons, but as to your point, Rudy, there's got to be some rules. I mean, to leave your team during the tournament, Rudy, is just I don't respect that. Something's got to give, and we need to at least put some parameters in here where you just can't transfer when you feel like it. Because Rudy, I forgot the kid's name. He transferred to Oregon. Oh no, he's going to Oregon as a freshman. He went to a spring camp. He can't compete. He literally just transferred somewhere else. I think the Cal. So it's like, dude, what? So there's no commitment. There's really none. College sports is going to change the next decade, Rudy. You're going to see a different product.
So the part that I see is the contract part now. You've got a kid come in, and I think one thing to look at, Gio, and again, unpopular opinion, I'm sure, but I think you need to look at both NIL and you need to look at the transfer portal. They can't go together. There's no way. So if you are a coach, say you are coach of Indiana, you've recruited all these kids and they're coming up because you've got some NIL money. You're going to guarantee them playing time. You're going to give them everything that they're looking for. But Michigan, Auburn, Clemson are going to be knocking on that door sooner or later. What do you think of this? If you're going to do the NIL deal, then you are allowed, first off, one transfer your entire collegiate career. Now, last week, I made mention of they need to get rid of the 7-year college career, the 9-year college career. College should be 4, maybe 5 years. The whole red shirt shit, the whole, red shirt injury stuff, it's all got to go. You can't, and like I said last week, you can't be in college 7 years playing football and not be a doctor or a lawyer or something. You're graduating still with a bachelor's in art and a bachelor's in finance. I mean, you can't be doing that. So if you're going to stay 7 years, you got to have more of that. But they've got to cut it off at a certain point, but also limit the transfer. If you're going to sign for 3 years, then you've got to at least give the coach a year's notice. Hey, you know what? I may transfer a year later. There's got to be something. There's got to be some kind of writing, like you mentioned. As far as that goes, what do you think of that? Limiting transfers and then also limiting the amount of time you are in college. You are on mute. So FYI, you are on mute. But limiting the amount of time you are in college.
Well, I think this also, though, Rudy, you have to also have rules. If the coach leaves, the player signed with that coach, he should be able to leave because the coach that he came there to play for, Rudy, is no longer there, right? So I think you also have to take that into effect, is that players love playing for certain styles of coaches. And if that coach leaves, the player should have the right to break their contract because he signed with that. So, there's so many obstacles, but so many ways that you can improve. But really, to your point, I agree. Some sort of contract style to where it forces the player to stay. But really, the red shirts are interesting because remember, the COVID, didn't COVID give them like 2 years or something? Like some sort of like.
Yeah, there was a COVID year. Yeah,
it's a COVID year. You had the red shirt. You have a medical red shirt too. So, and then Cam Rising, Rudy, how many years has he been? How many years he's been in damn college football, and where is he going? Because I don't think he's going to be at Utah, is he?
No, he's not going to be at Utah, I don't believe.
But by the way, he scammed them last year. He knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't do anything. That guy is I have to give him credit because he's cheating the system. But Cam Rising knew exactly. Cam Rising was not going to play last year, and he did. And then he came out of the game. It's just completely ridiculous. Rudy, 7-8 years, Rudy. I mean, come on, college football. But Rudy, I don't blame them because they're playing the system and they're getting paid to do so.
Yeah, they are. And Tim saying that the portal is out of control. I agree with that. It's got to be one or the other. Even team managers and water boys are getting. Yeah, I mean, was Amir. The guy Azar Khan, or whoever his name is, for
I saw that Rudy
McNeese State is getting $100K now from NIL. I mean, this kind of gets to a point. It's kind of a rant that I wanted to bring up too in a little bit, because seeing that kind of stuff, it just really pissed me off. Some schools have GMs now, like North Carolina, Bill Belichick, they have a GM now. And that's something that I suggested a while back too. I said, these schools are going to have to get general managers. They're going to have to run their sports programs, not the athletic director. They're going to need a general manager, because they're going to have to start doing contracts for these kids. They're going to have to start making sure the money is, spent right, all this other stuff. So now you got to go out and get GMs. Wouldn't you say that these kids are staying in college for so long because they're not good enough to go pro, as they have to milk them? And then that's what it is. Basically, that was the next point. That exactly what Joel said. They're staying in college and they're using I have a COVID year. I have a COVID medical year. I have a red shirt year. I have a red shirt medical year. Now let me start my sophomore season after all those years. But during those times, I was still collecting a little bit of NIL money.
And Rudy, can't they transfer before you play 4 games too?
Yes, I believe so.
The receiver, forgot his name, from Indiana, who came back last year coming into the season, I thought he was really good, but just unfortunately couldn't get any offense, and he literally transferred mid-year. And I'm like, what? Really, I think the next 5 years, I think things will kind of regulate a bit as we get more information. But really, I mean, it's crazy. I couldn't imagine really having a teammate transferring during the middle of the tournament. And why do you need to transfer right now, dude? You can't wait?
Well, the window opened, I think, today or yesterday. So they want to make sure that they get their name into the transfer portal.
Well, it's interesting, Rudy. Three of FAU's best players from last season transferred.
Yeah.
And we saw what happened to FAU basketball, not nearly the same. Some of these small schools, to Billa's point, I think he's right. Obviously, this year is could be different, but I think long term, Rudy, these players are going to go to small schools after a year, and then they're going to leave to a bigger school. Because Rudy, back in the old days, remember, you had to wait a year. You had to wait a full year to transfer.
Yeah,
and it was harder. And it was harder back then too. Like, it was just a lot of stuff. Now it's just like, okay, my credits just automatically transfer. Okay, what?
Well, and that's the thing, is that, it's like, okay, you used to, okay, so you brought it up. You had to wait a year. So if I transferred, I couldn't play that following year. I had to wait an entire year before I could even get on the field or whatever. Now, I like that part, but the biggest thing for me is the coaches. You're coaching these guys up just to lose them. And I know Jay sees it, but he doesn't really quite hit it on the head a whole lot of times. Is that right there? You're coaching them up, and that's the difficulty part. That's the difficult part there. Jeff Traylor at UTSA, he has a whole lot of success, but he sees guys come in and they transfer. Frank Harris was an exception to the rule there. He stayed his entire career at UTSA. But once he left, you started seeing players transfer, the better players transfer out. They went to go get the bag.
Do you think Jeff should have left a year before? Probably. And in hindsight,
man, we talk about this a lot, about Jeff Traylor, and I think he stays, like I said, but I think there's very limited jobs that he's looking at. Obviously, UT being one. UT is at the top of the list. If A&M becomes available, we're talking possibility. I think it's very few and far in between.
Well, if Mike Gundy does the same stink job he does last year, really, Oklahoma State could be open.
Yeah. Yeah, Oklahoma State could be open.
Yeah.
I mean, but does he want to go to Oklahoma State, though? That's the thing. Well,
really, he might not have a choice. I mean, Florida, we saw they're sticking to their guns. Florida kept with the coach, right?
Mario Cristobal?
No, from the Florida Gators. What's his name?
Yeah. I know. I can't remember offhand.
Which, by the way, Ford has another horrendous schedule, Rudy. Again,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how he's going to keep his job, but we'll see. But there's some opportunities, Rudy, where he could go. But like you said, the big time schools, maybe Kentucky. That could be an interesting job, Rudy. If Stoops, has another bad year, could be fired. I can see a spot where Kentucky, they have the money, they got the fan base. Possibly, Rudy. He's probably looking at that type of tier of team.
We'll see. I think, he stays for a while. I think he's kind of already honed in on a couple of jobs already. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Jeff Traylor. But yeah, NIL getting a little out of hand, transfer portal getting out of hand. What do you guys think? How do you think we should be able to control everything going on here in NCAA? Because, man, it is getting really, really, really out of hand. Just like this, Gio, before we go to a commercial break, this is getting out of hand. Why is it on TikTok? I'm asking you because this has nothing to do with NIL, but it has something to do with managers and water boys and all that getting, paid all this money. Why is it on? Are we really living right now where we're literally watching people make utter fools of themselves? Literally killing themselves right in front of us. And when I say that, I don't mean, by suicide. I'm talking, I clicked on my TikTok and yeah, we have 67 followers on our TikTok. Be sure to go to our TikTok at Sweep the League Radio, hit that follow button. But all of a sudden there's a guy posting him eating a Rudy Campos Jr. special from back in the day. Like 3 McDoubles, 3 McChickens, 3 orders or 4 orders of fries, 4 Cokes, large Cokes. The kid is literally about 500 pounds. And you've got 3.1 million likes. You've got 107,000 followers. And your videos are getting, 150,000 views. I need you to explain this because you're way younger than me. What in the absolute F are we doing as a society where this can be accepted? If that was the case, Gio, and you're on mute, if that was the case, why wasn't I doing that when I was literally killing myself back in the day eating what I ate?
Rudy, you did not take advantage. But
I didn't know it was a thing.
But Rudy, actually, they call it ASMR, which is a big thing right now. People like to hear someone eating. There's a lady, Rudy, who has millions of followers, and she eats pickles. She literally just eats pickles. We're in that era, Rudy, where people like this strange shit. It's just what it is, and I'm not surprised. I see food reviewers super big. And people like to watch them eat. I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Neither do I.
But really, it's just the time that we're in. But in general, I think ASMR, it's the sound. People like to hear people eat. It's crazy.
Well, I get the ASMR thing. Now, crazy. I think we all have a certain ASMR that we all listen to kind of relax us and all that. I totally get that. Me, I listen to TV when I go to bed. That's what helps me sleep in the background. And Joel Clone's right. This is a mukbang thing?
Yeah.
Mukbang? I have no idea what that is.
It's when people just eat, Rudy. They get a bunch of food, and I've seen it before. I'm not going to lie. There's a guy named Nick Avocado, which, by the way, he lost all the weight that he gained. So good for him. He's super skinny now.
Avocado?
Yeah, Nick Avocado. And he used to be a raw vegan, then he gained 200 or 300 pounds. And then now he's actually lost all the weight. He looked like he was on Ozempic. You can kind of tell when someone's on Ozempic. But anyway, yeah, he used to do, and he still does them now as he's skinnier. So yeah, food mukbangs are a thing, man. People, I'm not gonna lie. I occasionally I'll watch food reviews on something that I'm interested in eating, and I want to see if someone thinks it's good. So
I don't want to see a 900-pound person eating 5 burgers and 5 fish fillets and a whole bag full of fries and stuff. I mean, I don't want to say, and there's a difference between ASMR munching on a burger and you hear the sound of it and you're like, oh, that's relaxing. That's weird to me because hearing somebody eat just is disgusting to me. But if that's your thing, yeah. But literally a person just talking about, oh, I'm going to eat all this. I'm going to eat all this. Oh my God, this is so amazing. Dude, you are literally killing yourself in front of us. And how is that okay?
Well, it's not okay. Rudy, have you been to Heart Attack Grill in Vegas?
I've heard of it, and I could have eaten free there back in the day.
If you go to whenever you go, it's in it's not on the Strip. It's on that other one. I completely forgot, but it's not the Strip. It's the other one.
It's downtown. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So it's crazy. Rudy. You can they have an 8-patty burger, and they can give you like I think 16 strips of bacon. I'm like, dude. I mean, and my girlfriend's like, "Oh, you're gonna eat that?" I'm like, "I'm not eating that. Are you crazy?" Like,
but isn't that carnivore?
Yeah, fruity, but to eat, like, yes, it is keto carnivore, but really, that's too much, dude.
It is
8 patties. I mean, and the meat quality is probably not even that good, Rudy. So it's gonna taste super greasy. I mean, really greasy. And just not probably pleasant to eat. But yes, mukbangs, Rudy. People do it. Nick Avocado
was doing a social experiment with mukbangs and told everyone his new videos were old ones. When he posted them, he played everyone. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
anything about that.
I did hear about that, Joel. I don't 100% believe him, but I do think he was doing some sort of weird experiment, and he is kind of a really interesting oddball to say the least.
Well,
but yeah,
I'm gonna get off the food porn thing here because this is something that I have this guy's name etched in my head, because if I'm ever lucky enough to just run into this guy, I don't care what security there's there, I'm gonna clock this mother effer one time. And this guy is that Jack Doherty guy who walks around, thinks he's tough. He's a little effing kid, and he pulls up to people, acts tough, and his security steps in when they try to go. No. See, I would love for him to just walk by me doing that shit, because security is not going to stop me. I guarantee that. I don't care if you have 7'5" security guy or whatever. I don't care. I'm way closer to the ground than these 7-footers that I can easily do a Johnny Cage nut shot to the person, and I can get around them with no problem. But that guy forever, how is it to where social media, TikTok, or everybody, we love to see assholes like this just act like that, man. It's terrible. It's terrible. And you know what? Joel agrees with me, Gio. He agrees with me. He's a POS human.
Yeah, no, it's part of the fabric of American life, really. It's just common. People like to watch stuff like that. And there's all sorts of things on social media. You have these people who are out there looking, I'm sure you've seen it, Rudy, these predator people. They try to catch people who are trying to date underage people. That's all over the place too. Every video I see, someone's exposing. It's just literally everywhere we look. It's just crazy stuff happening, and people love to watch. It's just, it's the American culture, Rudy.
Sadly, it is the American culture, man.
That's the American culture right now.
We're going to take a quick commercial break here. On the way back, we've got some NFL movements. Stephon Diggs is a Patriot now. Russell Wilson signed with the Giants. He's going to be battling out with Jameis Winston for the Giants. No more Daniel Jones. Sad. That's very, very sad. No more Daniel Jones.
I told you, Rudy.
Not only that, my little conspiracy theory for the San Antonio Spurs, Gio. I'm people are like, why are you winning? Why are you winning? Why are you winning? Well, maybe they know something ahead of time that a lot of us don't know. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a commercial break, go back. We'll be back here in a minute with NFL talk. Also our MLB tribute, as we've been doing every single show here. At the end of the show, we're doing an MLB tribute. This time, Will Clark is talking about Ricky Henderson. So that'll be at the end of the show. NFL talk. Coach Gio, Rudy Campos Jr. on the way back.
Ricky here.
Rick, well, actually, he would say Henderson here. Henderson
right, yeah.
here. So
Yeah.
before we go, let's go to Fade to Black real quick. And what we're going to do is I'm going to put Gio back in the green room, and I'm going to talk to you guys for 1 second before we go to commercial break here. And, of course, this past week, we did lose a legend in the sport of boxing. George Foreman passed away. One of the legends of the game. For a lot of people, it's what he did in the ring. For a lot of other people, it's the Foreman grills. I think everybody has owned one from time to time in their past, but George Foreman, one of the greatest boxers that we have ever seen in the sport of boxing. 76 wins, only 5 losses in his career. He was a Olympic gold medalist in 1968, the Mexico City Games. George Foreman passed away last week.
Oh, it's not just a loss for boxing. It's a loss for the world to win that Olympic gold medal, knocking out a heavyweight veteran from Russia in his 30s when he was 19 years old. The whole story is so improbable. Boxing is, more than any other sport, the place where you can go from nowhere to somewhere, and George did.
What do you want the world to know about who George Foreman was as a person?
A giant, one of the 5 greatest heavyweight champions of all time. He was the kind of person who could give you great common sense advice on how to wrap yourself back up and get together after a loss or a disappointment or something went wrong.
Are you looking for a contracting company that gets the job done right the first time? Look no further than MCS General Contracting. MCS specializes in top quality concrete work, including patios, driveways, foundations, and swimming pools. The team of experts are dedicated to delivering exceptional results and unparalleled customer satisfaction. At MCS General Contracting, they're not just hardworking, they're local. Based in San Antonio, they are committed to building relationships and trust within the community. That's why MCS guarantees your satisfaction. They pride themselves on getting the job done right the first time, every time. So why wait? Contract MCS General Contracting today to schedule your project and experience the difference for yourself. MCS General Contracting. Building a better San Antonio, one project at a time. Proud sponsors of Sweep the League.
You are watching Sweep the League TV. Make sure you subscribe and catch our new videos.
Sweep the League TV with Rudy Derrick and Coach Gio. Let's get back to the live show. You are watching the best in the business.
All right, welcome back to Sweep the League. Coach Gio, Rudy Campos Jr. Hopefully Derek Gerwin should be back tomorrow. I know we talked to him earlier today. He said he's going to try to make it back tomorrow, but let's get into some NFL news real quick here. Stephon Diggs, Gio, 3-year, $69 million deal, coming off of a torn ACL last season when he played with the Houston Texans. But signing for the Patriots, I'm okay with it. They need to get some weapons in there. Obviously, Drake May is going to be their starting QB there. I'm not excited about it. I know he's going to be probably their wide receiver 1 there, but how does it make you feel with Stephon Diggs going to the Patriots?
I wouldn't say he's the greatest locker room guy, at least from what I've heard. He's a bit of a diva, Rudy, but a lot of receivers are like that. But I do think having a number 1 receiver in New England is definitely going to help Drake May. And Rudy, I thought he played as well as he could last year, Rudy. We saw what that team was.
Yeah.
It was a disaster, especially on the offense, and to the point where the coach got fired. So I like to move. How much does Diggs have in the tank? I think he still has something to prove. And look, he's a body. He's talented, Rudy. When healthy, would you say top 10 best receiver in the league?
Top 10. Man.
When healthy at his best.
When healthy at his best, if you're going to throw him in the top 10, it's going to be like 9 or 10.
10. Yeah, no, that's the thing. Or like 10, 12. So I like the move. He's a diva. He's gonna yell. He's gonna scream, like AJ Brown does. But at the end of the day, he'll make plays. And for a young quarterback, Rudy, hey, you give him that number one guy there. We'll see what they do in the draft. But I like the move. It's not the best move, but Rudy, they need help on offense. So any a good move in New England at this point.
So you'll be proud of me because I have your Rams as the number 2 team again.
He's gonna jinx us
in the NFC again in the NFC.
That's what Rudy's doing. He's gonna jinx us again.
I'm not jinxing you. I've got him at number 2 right now at the NFC in the NFC.
Well, Rudy, we talked about if it's not for Bo Lemmer messing that block, Stafford hits Higbee up. Really, it's a good possibility Rams win that game against the Eagles, and dare I say, they beat the Commanders. And with that defensive line, dare I say, they beat the Kansas City Chiefs and win the Super Bowl.
Hey, the Chiefs were terrible, and I was saying it all year. You said they were going to be Super Bowl representatives. I'll give you that much. But they were just a terrible team that got lucky all year.
They ran out of gas. And Rudy, to be fair, Rudy, they've made a lot of deep runs into the postseason. I mean, Rudy, to get this far, I mean, how many times have they been to the Super Bowl? It's been like 4 or 5 times. I mean, hey, it's tough on your body to continue that extension, that focusedness. And Rudy, something tells me, if the Commanders won, the Commanders would have also won. I think any team from the NFC, besides many of those other bottom teams, they would have beaten the Chiefs. I just think the Chiefs, they look gassed, and that was disappointing, Rudy. That was such a disappointing Super Bowl. I mean, by halftime, you felt like it was probably over. But hey, thank you, Rudy, for having the Rams second. I haven't been able to talk about the Rams as a Rambassador, but I like what the Rams have done. Poona Ford coming in, giving them some depth. Obviously, Devontae Adams. They also signed your linebacker, Rudy. I forgot his name. He had a good year, according to Pro Football Focus. So I think the Rams are gearing up for a run. Obviously, Packers are there, and you have the defending champs in the Eagles, which, Rudy, you got to give me some credit, Rudy. I did say, dude, they signed Saquon Barkley, and you, Derek Griffin, says, I don't know, and this and that. I said, listen, if Nick Sirianni, Rudy, I did say it, if he can manage those personalities,
you did.
I think the Eagles have a great chance of winning the entire thing. And people were saying, are you crazy, Gio? And I said, I really think, and Rudy, what did I say? Sign Saquon. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Saquon was out there, and I talked to my friend Gerald on the Rams and said, hey, I think the Rams should sign Saquon. No, they have Kyron. I said, I don't know, man. Saquon's a beast. And the freaking Giants idiot general manager, who, by the way, should be fired. That's a fireable offense to me. And Brian Daboll, it's time for you to go too. But they're going to give him one more year for whatever's left of that team. But they did sign Russell Wilson, Rudy, which I know we'll talk about.
Yeah, we're going to move on to that real quick. Let's give Joel his roses today because he brought up the best comment of the night so far here. I love this, man. He says Mahomes is 0-3 in the playoffs.
Damn, Tom.
And in the booth.
I'm tired of Tom should have never called that game. You know what? You're right, Joel. Tom should have never called that game.
Oh, man. Tom's
still screwing everybody.
Tom's going to be calling every single game when it comes to.
You know what, Rudy? I like Tom as a commentator. I know he's been getting a lot of hate. People make fun of him. And it was tough early on because, Rudy, it's not easy calling NFL games. It's just not. Like, you see some of these guys like Davis and so many great commentators. It's tough, but shout out to Tom. I think he's doing a good job.
Yeah, he's doing a good job. And you did mention about Russell Wilson. He ended up signing with the Giants. It's going to be now starting QB. I don't know. I mean, it's still going to be up in the air between him and Jameis. I like Jameis in New York. Just kind of revitalized career. So I think more than anything, this really just points to Aaron probably going to be a Steeler at the end of the day, which I have no problem with. I think Aaron fits there for, Pittsburgh for at least a year. But again, Russell Wilson with the Giants. Joel brought up a little comment a while ago. He's not overly happy about the Diggs deal. Not really excited about Stephon Diggs joining the Patriots. I totally get that. I mean, it's not an exciting move. It's not a sexy move at all. It's just a veteran move that they had to make, in my opinion. They had to get a receiver. They had to get, can't really say a big-time receiver, but if they're able to keep him under control, if they're able to keep him, just on the right frame of mind, Stephon Diggs could have a decent year with.
Yeah, right. He can be surprising. He can have 1,000 yards. I mean, look, I think he's still got something left in the tank. Now we'll find out first year if he's just not in it and he's just dogging it and he just wants to get paid, which does happen. Yeah. Obviously, later in your career, I remember Rudy when the Rams signed Allen Robinson. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. So you do have to be wary of signing players later on in their career because you don't know what they have in the tank. Not everybody's an Aaron Donald, Rudy, Oh,
I know that. The Giants probably pick Travis Hunter now at 3. Patriots maybe move down if he's about to get Tyler Warren. Thoughts? So for the Patriots, that's a really tough call for me. I like where they're drafting, but I also would prefer that the Patriots do trade down, get a few more draft picks in this draft. They need to build. They have so many positions that they've got to actually get better at and upgraded at. I think if they stay where they are, they're probably going to go offensive lineman, one of the better offensive linemen in the class today. But even if they trade down, they can still get a really good, serviceable offensive lineman and add a couple of picks in there as well. So I think what I want to do is I want to do a live mock draft here on Sweep the League for you guys. I don't know if it'll be on a weekend or maybe during the show during the week. I'll see if Gio can join with me. We'll do a live mock draft here on Sweep the League for you guys before the NFL draft. So that way you guys have an idea of what we're thinking and see what you guys are thinking as well. But the Giants taking Travis Hunter, I think that's almost, it's either going to be him, but here's my thing, Gio. If he's there, I would prefer the Giants take Abdul Carter. They need a lot of help on the defense. Now, if you have Kevin Thibodeau there and then you have Carter, that's a nice 1-2 punch right there. So honestly, Travis Hunter, as great as a player, people think he's going to be, I think he's a better wide receiver than he is cornerback, just FYI. But you already have Malik Neighbors there. Why not go get some defensive help? Abdul Carter, I would love him to be in New York. That would be my pick right there.
No, yeah, he's an explosive player, Rudy. You just put the tape on and just like, yeah, this guy jumps out at you. As you said, the Giants need a lot of help. A lot of help. They need help on the offensive line. They need help on defense. They need help in all types of different areas. And you probably should trade back. But Abdul Carter, I mean, it's Tyson, Rudy. Yeah, Tyler Warren is hey, good pick, Rudy. But you see what the Eagles are doing, Rudy. They see what the Commanders are. I mean, the Commanders, that's going to be a scary team next season. I think they're a team to take a next step. And yeah, the Cowboys are still there. But look, the Giants have to look at all these teams thinking, we need to do something. So Rudy, trade back, keep it. They can't go wrong with any of those picks. So, but I would probably try to get as much picks as you can, Rudy, because at this point, I mean, you need assets, and at this, they don't have anything besides Malik and a few other guys on that defensive front, which is not terrible, but I just don't see it at this point.
A lot of teams are willing to trade up to those top 3 positions for whatever reason right now.
You know what's crazy, Rudy? I don't know if you remember, the Rams tried to trade up to get Brock Bowers. They tried. Yeah. They were literally on the phone with that stupid, was it Joe Douglas or whoever's running the Jets over there, trying to move up. Just imagine, Rudy, Brock Bowers with the Rams.
It would be nice. It would be nice.
But Jared versus, I'm so glad we got that guy, Rudy.
Well, I told you Jared Verse would be that guy. He was probably one of my best defensive players in the draft last year. So I'm glad that the Rams got him, man. It makes you happy after the Aaron Donald retiring. But, with Russell Wilson in New York, and we'll head into NBA because I got a couple of NBA things to get to. But with Russell Wilson in New York, this almost shuts the door on Shedeur Sanders being drafted by them, I feel. Now, before we go, I know my internet's lagging, so if you see me lagging a little bit, I see it. It's going in and out every now and then. So just a little shout out to the FYI for you guys out there. But do you think it shuts the door for Shedeur being in New York here?
Not necessarily, Rudy. I mean, look, they can draft Shedeur and start Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston, right? He'll be now. Obviously, you have two guys kind of fighting out, so it probably won't. But hey, he could sit down for a year or two, watch how these guys play. But the more I think about it, Rudy's probably not going there. Not even Cam Ward, obviously. And I like Cam. I know Cam's a bit of a late bloomer, and it's kind of come out of nowhere. He had a really good year in Miami. But Rudy, yeah, it's probably a no. So Rudy, do you go? I think they should go offensive line or defense here if they keep that pick.
Are you talking about the Giants?
Yeah.
So if it's me, I'm probably going, like I said, Abdul Carter, number one. That's the guy who I have circled. After that, if I'm New York, I'm actually trading down and getting a couple of picks somewhere. Maybe another trade down somewhere back in the first, later on in the first. Maybe grab a third and a sixth again this year from somebody. I mean, just get as many picks as you can. I can honestly say this is one of the drafts where I'm kind of excited for it because you can find, and you can't say this about a lot, outside of the quarterback position, you can find a lot of value. I think where you draft at number 10, you can find an identical player there at number 50. I mean, the talent is really good. It's crazy that we have an NFL draft and an NBA draft, both of them being so deep with great players that no matter where you draft, you can get a really good player somewhere in there. So I think trading down would be good for the Giants. And, Joel, I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm Tennessee, I've got Abdul Carter circled 1, and that's it. That's if I don't trade my pick. I understand Will Levis isn't that guy, but I can go get a quarterback later on in the draft. I can worry about that later. But I would definitely go Abdul Carter 1. That would definitely be. And then what you have Cleveland next. What does Cleveland do? I mean, you're probably thinking, well, there's Cam Ward right there. There's the quarterback that Cleveland would need. Then obviously, from there on you go wherever. But if it's me, Abdul Carter is number 1. If he so happens to drop to the Giants, that's where I would definitely go.
Well, the Browns, Rudy, they got a problem at quarterback.
Well,
and Deshaun Watson, as I've always told Rudy, he's never been the same since they took the massage parlors away. The Browns are interesting, Rudy. They got pieces there. They just haven't been able to fix it. And really, what we've seen from Deshaun, really, they need to move on. They just can't.
Yeah.
So, but isn't he out for the year because he tore his? What did he tear at the end there? I forgot what injury he has, but so he's not going to start the season. So I like him with the Browns. I actually think that could work. They got Judy, Rudy. They got pieces. They have Njoku there. They got something. They got pieces there to fit with Cam.
Yeah.
But Deshaun's contract's still lingering. And some of their offensive linemen are getting up there in age, so maybe they go offensive line. Or they trade down. It's possible Browns could trade out because they just need more assets and they need more individuals to help come up their team. But Rudy, Cam Ward, I like him in Cleveland. It's a low-key spot, too. Not too much expectations. It's a team that's trying to get back in the right direction since they gave Deshaun that horrendous contract, which really, 20 years from now, we're getting a 30 for 30.
I hope so. I hope so, and I hope it's a happy ending at the end of that 30 for 30 with Deshaun Watson, man. Get into some real quick 2 NFL things before I go to a quick NBA note here. Last week, I mentioned it again. I mentioned it a month or so ago with you and Derek. Keep in mind, J.J. McCarthy did come out today and say that Minnesota has not said he's their number one QB. They don't have him as QB1 yet. So, again, we talked about the Purple podcast that we showed last week about the chances of Justin Herbert maybe being a Viking. You got that whole trade thing, McCarthy visiting with McCarthy going back to his old collegiate coach with Harbaugh. So now that, JJ's coming out, hey, they haven't committed to me just yet. Again, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I'm throwing back out there. Also, the rumor of Cortland Sutton being traded to the Cowboys. We'll let that marinate for a little bit on the possibilities. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But real quick, just some news from Shams here. Dame Lillard is going to be out for a while. I think it might be for the season. Same thing as Victor Wembanyama. Blood clot. He has deep vein thrombosis. This time it's in his right calf, unlike Victor, who had it in his shoulder. So prayers out to Dame. Blood clots are, they're not nothing to be messing with. So hopefully that he's able to recover. Same thing with Victor. But this is definitely, and again, I didn't have Milwaukee going very far this year. I didn't have them as contenders or anything. So, I mean, it's a really shot for the Bucks, but definitely prayers out for Dame Lillard there with the Milwaukee Bucks. You got any words on Lillard here before I ask you this next question?
No, just take care of yourself, Rudy. We've seen players have to retire. We saw Chris Bosh had the blood clots. That is you don't play with that. You do not play with that.
Definitely not. Gio, I'm going to bring this side of the screen up right here because I'm going to show tonight's game. And if you're listening to this tomorrow, it's last night's game. The Spurs lost 122-96 against Detroit. Now, you got to give love. Everybody, you got to give love to Detroit. Before the season, I told you guys my surprise team was the Detroit Pistons. Derek Irvin's like, I don't know about that. I don't know. They're going to be good, but not going to be that good. And this team had improved a whole lot in the offseason. I loved what they did. Coaching staff revitalized. Everything was rechanged in Detroit. Bad Boys basketball is not exactly back, but it's getting there. But I bring this up for this. Spurs they won 5 out of their last 7 prior to this game. Everybody thought Victor's out. De'Aaron Fox is out, Gio. They should be a lottery team. There's no reason for them to win, yet they started winning. So here's my conspiracy theory for this. And I sat and I thought about it. They don't care if they finish in the lottery. They don't care if they finish close to the play-in or maybe in the play-in spot at a number 10. They could catch, Phoenix or whoever's there. So they don't care. Why? Do you feel that it's because they're playing chess? They've already got a move made in the offseason? A la the potential of a major superstar, as in maybe a Kevin Durant, maybe somebody else who's pretty much already signed, sealed, delivered, and these picks are going that way, whether it's a lottery or it's just outside the lottery. They have 2 first-rounders in a very deep draft, and you've got a lot of disgruntled superstars, not to mention – I mentioned at the beginning of the season, watch for Giannis in Milwaukee. If they're not winning, he doesn't want to be there. So is my conspiracy theory maybe onto something here?
You might be, Rudy. You do come up with some crazy theories, but this one could be right. The Spurs could already be onto something. And, we know a lot of these owners and GMs, they're all talking, Rudy.
Yeah.
They're all talking, hey, this and that. They're texting each other. Stuff's going on behind closed doors. So it can be very possible the Spurs are very comfortable with this offseason coming up. I'm excited to see what this team does. But Rudy, man, Cooper Flag, I saw him in that game against Taylor, Rudy. I'm telling you right now, that kid could potentially be a special kid, man. So, I mean, if Cooper Flag is San Antonio,
it works. It works,
and they're going to be able to attract, even other type of players, not just star players, right, Rudy, but your important role players that you need later on in the career. But man, Rudy, I think Cooper Flag, I know he's a Duke player, and I know it probably pains you to say that Duke's going to win the whole thing.
I have Auburn.
And by the way, Rudy, we never got to talk about it, but your Tar Heels frauds should have never gotten in.
Why don't I send you the link to last week when they announced the Tar Heels in? I took off the Tar Heel hat and I took off the jersey. I put it off to the side, and I did say it was terrible. It was the worst decision I had ever seen to include a North Carolina team that did not deserve a spot in the tournament or even in the play-in round to get into the tournament. The North Carolina Tar Heels were not deserving of that. Now, I actually got flack from North Carolina fans saying, you're not a true Tar Heel fan. You're not a true Tar Heel fan. You should never. You know what? I don't care. Through the league here, we don't have a filter. We don't, just because we cheer for a team doesn't mean we're not going to call it out the way it is. I hated that Carolina got into the tournament. I super duper hated it. They were a fraud this year. They were terrible.
Did they give Davis? Did they give Davis a contract extension, Rudy?
Yeah.
What's your feeling on him, real quick, before we leave?
I will say this on Hubert Davis. Reminds me of the Matt Doherty years, where you're gonna have wins, you're gonna have a little success, you're gonna make a run as Hubert did, but at the end of the day, he's still not the guy. He's a jack. He's just another guy, and I don't like the fact. But again, who else can we Who else can we get to coach there? Now with Belichick there, hopefully he lasts at least till game one, because who knows, he may bolt after before game one. I don't know.
Maybe remember your coach, your former coach. What was he like in limbo? I was like, is he coaching anymore? What's the Tar Heel coach for the football team last year, Rudy?
Mac Brown?
Yeah, remember it was rumors he quit at halftime, or it was just some weird thing. Is Mac Brown even coaching anymore? Well, Bill Belichick, Rudy, that is going to be one hell of an experiment. I'm very interested to see what Bill does. Also, he has a 24-year-old girlfriend, which is always so funny to even think about that with Bill. But you know what? I like this Bill, though. Bill had that show on football, which I actually loved. So this different style of Bill, he seems a bit more, I guess, dare say down to earth, as now he's coaching college kids and he knows. But really, I don't want to say rest in peace, George Foreman. I know he passed away. Really, in his prime, that man was completely dangerous, man. There were reports, Rudy, that people feared that Ali could die. That they were scared for his life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we all saw what Foreman did later on. Rudy, remember, is he the oldest heavyweight champ? Or when he beat who did he beat? He beat that was there something more? Right? He beat him in like 1994, 95 to win the championship.
Yeah, there was. I don't know if it was more. I know he won later in his career. Yeah,
and that was such a big accomplishment. But Rudy, the George Foreman grills, besides all that, he was a giant, but he was a man's man, and he would truly be missed. George Foreman, such a classic guy.
Yeah, very classic guy. One of the good guys in boxing. He'd like to talk to a lot of fans. He liked to interact with fans. Of course, you called him late nights with the Foreman Grill. I think everybody's at least owned the Foreman Grill at one point in their life.
Rudy, they had to pay him out.
Yeah,
he was making so much money. I just said, dude, we just need to pay you out, and you're done with this. That's how much money Foreman made. And he changed his personality as he got older, because when he was younger, he was a menace, but it was crazy.
Yeah, Foreman had two different boxing careers, then the businessman career and the broadcaster career. Class act, rest in peace. Definitely one of the good guys of boxing, George Foreman here. So conspiracy theory, like I said about the Spurs, I don't think they really care about wins and losses. I think they're going out to win. The reason why is because you're starting to see Devin Vassell just ball out left and right, which what does that do? That increases trade value for a player like that. So averaging 20 plus points a game last few games, I just think I think they have something in the back of their mind right now. They got something worked out somewhere there. So that's conspiracy theory. Before we go, Gio, I just want to let you know, I made the comment, Cooper Flagg, he's not a number one option in the NBA. I will say that. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, but I did make mention that if he was on the Washington Wizards, he would struggle mightily compared to if he was on a team with another star or a lot of help. I think at Duke, if you really look at it, he's not a number one option. He plays within the system, and that's what makes him so good. He's like Andre Karolinko, just way better. But I mean, remember AK-47, he played within the system, Jerry Sloan, a lot of these guys, and that's where he was the most effective. So I don't know if you agree with that real quick before we leave. Cooper Flagg, I mean, depends on where he goes, but he can't be a number one option.
Everyone has a system, Rudy. I mean, Jordan had the triangle, right?
Yeah.
You know, the Showtime Lakers. Every team has a system. And look, Cooper Flagg, Rudy, I saw him at a USA practice play pretty good against actual NBA players. So I think there's something there. I mean, whether he's a Hall of Famer or not, I think he could be really good in the pros, but we all know, depends where you go, who's your coach, what teammates you have around you, what are the intangibles. I do think he has some winning intangibles, though. I'm not saying he's those Tebow intangibles where it's like, it lifts up entire organization. But right now, from what I've seen, I'm very excited to see where he goes. You got to surround him with talent. And any great player, Rudy, they need players around them. I mean, Tim Duncan was great, Rudy, but he also had David Robinson, right?
Yeah.
Kobe had Shaq. I mean, they need players around them to succeed. I don't think it's a knock on Cooper Flagg, but wherever he goes, whether it's, God forbid, the freaking Washington, because that is a disaster completely. But yeah, it does matter also where he goes and who he plays with and who's his coach.
I think so. I mean, like I said, if he goes into a Washington Wizards squad, he's going to struggle mightily, man. I mean, that's the difficult part there.
We're ready the NBA gods. Hey, come to San Antonio. If he's in San Antonio, I think he'll do great, Rudy.
So, again, if he comes to San Antonio, yeah, it's going to be a definite big-time thing. Hopefully you can join me tomorrow because tomorrow's going to be a fun night. Derek should be back, but if not, I teased it on Locked On Spurs, and it's going to happen tomorrow. I'm going to show you and everybody else what's going on tomorrow. We're going to dive into this, Gio. How much of a difference in careers would this be if this happened? If Bird was drafted by the Lakers and Magic was drafted by the Celtics, what career would they have? Now, talking to a couple of NBA guys, I already did, Derek Irvin being one of them, they made mention that Bird would have the most successful career of the two. Now, you got to remember, it's Bird on Showtime and Magic with the Celtics, but the Lakers don't have Showtime with Bird. But the Celtics are kind of a half-court team, so that doesn't fit Magic. So this is a tough one here. This is a great debate that we're going to have.
Yeah, very interesting. You look at the Lakers Showtime. They had also James Worthy, which is a Hall of Famer. Obviously, Kareem. He was getting up there in age in the middle of that run. It's an interesting conversation, Rudy. I think Larry.
It's tough.
Larry probably has. I'd say Larry has more rings, Rudy.
By far.
But and then if you flip them, obviously, Magic has more rings because would you say he played with? And when I mean a better team, I mean that very lightly because Boston, that 1984 team, Rudy, Boston might be considered one of the greatest NBA teams of all time. So I'm not saying that, but I just think collectively the Lakers, They did win 5 championships in that run, and Boston got 3, Rudy. But but also who they beat. They also beat one of the rings of birds. They beat the Rockets, which, hey, I'm not disrespecting them, but the Rockets aren't the Lakers, right? Of the Showtime.
Yeah.
And then Larry, did he beat the Lakers twice in the finals, Rudy?
I know one for sure. Might have been twice. Yeah, might have been twice. Now, the thing is with Bird, like I said, you don't have Showtime in LA, but you have probably, and I'm not going to say maybe, you have the greatest front court in NBA history. Bird, Worthy, Jabbar. I mean, there's no other front court that could probably match up to them in history. But you don't have the run. You have Norm Nixon at your point. Of course, you got Byron Scott. You have a great bench with AC Green. Michael Thompson, Michael Cooper. I mean, you got the Lakers team.
Wasn't McAdoo on that team, or did he retire?
I think McAdoo was before. He might have been there towards the end. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, his career. But then you look at the Magic side of things with the Celtics. Magic would play a slower paced game because you had Parrish, you had McHale, Dennis Johnson was the point. So what would you do with DJ? Does he maybe get traded for somebody? Does, you've got Danny Ainge, later on in the career. So when he's a rookie, but it's a very interesting thing because I think Bird has more rings.
Yeah.
But Magic might have more MVPs.
Yeah.
I mean,
very possible because now Larry, Larry,
surrounded by
that talent.
Yeah.
Rudy, didn't the Lakers get to draft? They were able to draft Worthy.
Thanks to Cleveland. Cleveland had that pick, and their owner traded that pick for a guy that, I averaged more points in a game than probably he ever did.
Absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, Rudy, it's some really good points. I think Larry, Larry's funny. One of the stories, Rudy, was Larry would get offended when they would put a white guy on him. And I always thought that was just absolutely hilarious. But no, Rudy, it's a hell of a conversation. I do think Larry gets more rings, but Magic is probably to that team more valuable and potentially wins more MVPs.
I think so.
And already that video I sent you, I know you couldn't see it because of my new Android.
It's a Nokia phone you sent it off of.
No, it's because Apple does it on purpose. They don't give you the real. But essentially, it was a video of Vernon Maxwell playing against the Blazers. He's talking trash to Clyde, and he's going into the lane, and Buck Williams says, "You better not come here again." And Vernon's like, what you talking about? I'm going to go on the lane. Vernon forgets. Vernon goes to the lane, and Buck Williams breaks his nose. And Vernon's nose is still crooked to this day, as he shared. And what Vernon said was this. He says, "You better listen to those guys back in the day, man, because when they told you something, they were going to do it." And really, I sat back and I said, Mike, how that NBA really was so different. Look at the fear they're putting into Vernon Maxwell, which was a good player, but no superstar.
Mm.
And Buck Williams broke his nose.
Back in the day, they didn't play. We'll just say
they didn't play, and I'm sorry. I know people, you LeBron sexuals. Look, I think LeBron would play in any era, but you can't tell me LeBron wouldn't have to bring his lunch pail, Rudy, because it's going to be a long day.
Shit. He would have had to bring it.
It's going to be a long day, and I got to give kudos to David Robinson because David played in that era too, and David was an absolute stud, even though Shaq likes to talk a lot of crap about David Robinson, which is so annoying because Shaq made up that stupid story about David didn't sign his freaking thing when he was younger. Oh, who cares, Shaq? Who cares? Yeah, right. It's absolutely ridiculous. But no, shout out to the 90s and 80s. That NBA, really, we talk about it. We want to bring it to today's NBA, which, probably shouldn't happen. But, man, the physicalness. And I started watching John Stockton videos and how he was a dirty player. John was actually a very dirty player. But yeah.
Had to be, man. You had to be back then.
Well, Gilbert Arenas actually said John Stockton wasn't anything special. And, Gilbert Arenas, Rudy, on his podcast is so disrespectful. He talked about Duncan not being great either. I was like, dude, you know what? Gilbert Arenas, what did you do? What? Yeah, great offensive player. But what did you really do in the NBA, Rudy? Can you tell me what he did? Did he have a great playoff run?
I mean, probably more noted for having guns in the locker room.
Did he miss free throws and then that Cavs series? And LeBron said something to him at the foul line and he missed the free throws?
Yeah.
I think Gilbert is a hell of a player. I'm not taking away anything from Gilbert. Agent Zero Rudy could score with the best of them. But at the end of the day, did Gilbert Arenas do anything in it? No.
I mean, and it's funny because I've been told that, NBA players hate when casuals talk bad about them because we never played in the NBA or we didn't play college ball. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's fine with me. You and I and everybody else, we just call it like we see it. I never disrespect anybody. You don't disrespect anybody.
He's a hell of a player, Rudy. Yeah. Hell of a player, but dude act like he was an amazing. He did so much in the NBA, and we remember him, and we can tell the story of the NBA, Rudy, without Gilbert Arenas.
Yeah,
you can tell the story of You can't tell the story without Barry Bonds, Rudy. As a big of a jerk as he was, which I am sure you know, as jerk as he was in that locker room, you cannot tell the MLB story without Barry Bonds. You can't tell it without Michael. You can't tell it without Larry Bird. There's just certain guys you can't just say the NBA. Gilbert Arenas, dude, I could tell the NBA a whole lot without Gilbert Arenas.
It's like Paul Pierce for me. I mean, Paul Pierce is more okay. Paul Pierce is noted for two things: shitting his pants, getting carried off the court because,
and then he came back.
He crapped his pants after all that, and also hitting a game-winning shot against the Pacers against, was it Al Harrington? I think. I mean, a step back game winner. Outside of that, okay, you won a title with the Celtics, but I mean,
I'll give. So yeah, Paul does say a lot of stuff, but I'll give Paul this champion.
Yeah,
Boston legend. I'll give him. But Gilbert Arenas is not even, to me, good player. But dude, I didn't see any success. Now Tracy McGrady. We can argue that for days. Though Tracy was a good player, Rudy.
I mean, he was one of the best. I look at how many times were you all NBA? Yeah. Because whether it be first team, second team, or third team, doesn't matter. You were a top 15 player in the league. So if you've got a good amount of all NBA teams, you're a hell of a damn player. I mean, that's kind of what I look at when it comes to thinking about, great players in the league. I think like Vince Carter, there was a run there where he was just, one of the absolute biggest names in basketball. But I think he only had, 4 all NBA selections or something? I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head. So if you have a 20-year career, just an example, 20 years, but you were all NBA 3 times. Doesn't mean you're a bad player. It just means 3 times out of your entire 20-year career, you are a top 15 player.
Well, how about Eli Manning, Rudy? We talk about him a lot.
He's a Hall of Famer. No, he's a Hall of Famer based off of, the accomplishments that he had in the Super Bowl. I'll say that. It's purely Super Bowl driven. I've always said that, but he is a Hall of Famer purely off of that.
I struggle with Eli, but I'll give you that he did beat Tom by hook or crook. He beat him in twice in the Super Bowl. That throw to Mario Manningham on that sideline throw, one of the best throws I've ever seen.
Exactly.
That throw that Eli made, and then obviously the David Tyree throw really that was completely how Vince Wilfork doesn't tackle And you know how big Vince Wilfork was. He was just huge. And the fact that he couldn't tackle Eli Manning, credit to him. But Eli, I think he led the NFL in interceptions 4 times.
Yeah.
No all pros. Now, all pros in the NFL is hard. I'll give you that. It's very hard. I think Tom only has 3?
Yeah, he doesn't have a whole lot.
Yeah, he didn't have a whole lot. So that it's tough in the NFL because I think the NFL should have a 3rd team all pro, if you ask me. But yeah, no, it's I don't want to shit on Gilbert. I just get annoyed with some of the things. And then Gilbert Arenas, he lied about John Stockton, and someone's showing clips of when John Stockton was balling up Gilbert Arenas. So I don't know.
People don't forget, man. People don't forget. Now, I know, man, we're way past the time, but real quick, you mentioned Eli Manning. If Eli was on a different team and not in the New York market, does that make sense? Now, say he went, say he's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
And he won 2 Super Bowls?
And they won 2 Super Bowls.
Oh,
does that change your stance? Now, say he has the exact same numbers, but he's a Super Bowl winning champion quarterback for the Cowboys. Does that make it any different than what he did in New York? Because he's a Giant.
I don't think it's a Giant thing. I think just because really he didn't even make the play at one point. He didn't make the playoffs for 10 years. It's so hard to me. The Hall of Fame should be really the best of the best of the best. And at this point, all the Hall of Fames, they're starting to let guys in that,
Well, baseball has no choice anymore because they're so hard to get in that they're just letting certain guys in. Just to avoid having the real players in, they're avoiding that.
Pudge Rodriguez got in, and Pudge is rumored to have used steroids. I don't care what anybody says. Pudge is on the list. That freaking Balco, whatever that list was, along with Big Poppy's on the list too.
Don't forget Big Poppy. He's on.
Big Poppy's on the list. Jeff Bagwell for years.
Yeah.
Speculation. And Mike Mussina gets in over Barry Bonds. You gotta be freaking kidding me. And tell me. And look, Sammy Sosa. Now Sammy did come out and he apologized to the Cubs, which I believe he apologized because he used steroids, but he never tested positive. Mark McGwire, I think you're not a big fan of Mark McGwire, Rudy, right?
I'm a fan of McGwire. I wasn't a fan of Sammy Sosa. See, McGwire's thing is this. When he was in Oakland, Bash Brothers, rookie year, I think he hit 49 homers his rookie season. So McGwire was on that path to be a really good home run hitter, a really good power hitter, whether it be steroids or not. And majority of those homers came in Oakland, which if you remember the Coliseum back in the day, it was very tough to hit a home run in. Very tough. And he was hitting them to center field. So I think McGwire would have been Barry Bonds. He would have had that career as a power hitter, really good hitter, not a great hitter, but a really good hitter. I just was never a fan of Sammy Sosa.
No, yeah.
I think Sosa just came out of nowhere.
He hit 60 home runs? Was it 2 or 3 years in a row? I mean,
yeah,
or 50 home runs. It was just absolutely insane.
It was a Jeremy Lin type of run. Like he just caught fire for a few years.
But Rudy, it saved baseball. MLB knew, Rudy. They knew Bonds was doing something, allegedly, whatever you want to call it, and they voted for him as the MVP, Rudy. They voted for him. And when it's time to give him his flowers,
make it make sense.
Well, he's a jerk. And he's this. And he's that. And okay, well, so what? I don't care if he's a jerk. What did he do on the field? Rudy, I've never seen Barry Bonds, one of the greatest players I've ever seen. I mean, I would have loved to see him up close, Rudy. But just watching him growing up and watching what he did, I mean, Rudy, sometime he'll get, 2 or 3 pitches a night. It got so bad that Booker walked a run in. He walked Barry with the bases loaded.
Yeah.
The bases were, he walked a run in, Rudy. Come on. That's how feared this guy was. Barry was a Hall of Famer before the alleged. He won 3 or 4 MVPs with the Pirates?
Yeah, he won a couple, I believe, with the Pirates. I mean, he was Hall of Fame bound in Pittsburgh. I mean, I've said that a million times.
They still fight me. He's a cheater. Okay, and they say that about OT. Well, he took cocaine. Well, yeah, you're not lying. He did, and he was thinking about it during the game, Rudy, which I find crazy, but that's who LT was.
Who's to say he wasn't doing it during the game? Like, let's be real. I mean, you know, here's the thing. Joel, I know we gotta go, but Joel put it nice. Never cared about the juice. Let them all in. That was a fun era. 100%. Baseball was baseball during that era. It was fun. These days, I watch a few baseball games, but I don't watch it nearly as much as I did back in the day. Like, I watched it a whole lot when you would have, TBS was broadcasting the Braves, and I was in that Maddox, Tom Glavine, Steve Avery, John Smoltz era where those guys were on a pitching rotation, and it was like, Jesus Christ, these guys are just,
Don't forget Dion.
Dion, another one, I mean, you can go during the Braves run, man. Rafael Belliard, David Justice, Sid Bream, Terry Pendleton.
And the fact, Rudy, that they only got one World Series. The team of the 90s.
Those Braves teams, Gio, oh my God. And this is the kind of talk you'll get on Austin's show, the Painting Corner.
Blunder after blunder. They had so many debacles.
Ron Gant, he was like one of my favorite Braves at the time, and I enjoyed watching him there. I mean, that team was snake bit for whatever reason. Perfect manager, perfect lineup, perfect pitching rotation. And they just could never get it done. I don't understand.
I think really the pressure.
I mean, shoot, dude. Wasn't Fred McGriff on some of those teams? The crime dog?
I think Fred was. I mean, really, remember,
Oh, my God.
Was it 91 they lose to the Twins, right?
That was a weird year because Minnesota, Kirby Puckett, Jack Morris was their ace. I mean, they didn't have a whole lot.
Also, they lose in Game 7. It was a walk-off. I think it went to extra innings.
Yeah.
And then they lose to the Phillies when they were going. And then obviously the Yankees. Yeah. And then didn't the Marlins beat them in 97, Rudy, I believe, in that playoff run that
Marlins bought that championship. I mean, you had Murderers Row from top to bottom.
And then, Rudy, they lose to the Padres in 98.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to Tony Gwynn and that horrendous, but they couldn't beat the Yankees.
Yeah.
So all these opportunities, but they finally got it.
They did, man. They did. That's the craziest part about baseball. I mean, we can go on and on about teams and teams and teams, but I don't know, man. Nonetheless, dude, you know what? I appreciate everybody joining us here on Sweep the League tonight, the Tuesday Night Delight Edition. This is going to be replayed again tomorrow morning, so you'll get an hour and a half of Coach Gio and myself. Catch up on all that we talked about, so it'll be replayed on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything out. Grady the Market coming back. Painting Corners podcast. Painting Corners podcast coming back full-time next year. Get a couple of those baseball episodes in as well as other podcasts all along Sweep the League Network. So for Derek Gervin, who should be back tomorrow, for Coach Gio, it's Rudy Thomas here. Until we sweep the league again tomorrow, we'll see you later, Knuckleheads.